Alright, so making slabs. I'm going to start with this clay here. This is going to be a good sized slab, so depends on what you're making, right? You want to think about how much slab you're actually going to use. So I think, this is going to give me a larger slab and I'll be able to do more things with it. So, but it doesn't mean you're going to start with this much right away. So what I'm doing right now is just sort of knocking it down in thickness, and I'm compressing the clay, getting it pushed together before I start slinging this out. You can shape it into a block and pound it that way. I just like doing it this way. Just use my fist. So I'm going to work one side down a little like that. So you can see if I'm punching this side gets flatter, right? So then flip it over and push it, drop it down on the table. Now for you guys, you don't have a cement board table, right? So don't do this on, don't do it like that, right? Use a piece of newspaper or a paper grocery sack, like cut it. You want to work on something that's really stable, yeah, but also something you can clean really easy. So make sure that it's not, I don't know if I would do this on a glass table, but if you do it, you can do it on a tile floor or concrete floor, whatever's flat, smooth, you can do this on the floor, right, until you get your slab right. And then just make sure you do it on paper or something, so you don't mess up the floor. All right. So you can see the block of clay that I just started using is already getting thinner and wider, so it's starting to spread out. So what you really want to think about when you're making these slabs is all these particles of clay are going in kind of different directions. So I don't want to just stretch it in one direction. So that's the thing with slab rollers, like they really push all that clay in one direction. But I like to move the clay around a little more. It becomes a better slab when you're stretching it in different directions. That it's a little nicer. So when I start doing this, like I will grab this side or this side and just kind of turn it, drop it, and then turn it this way, drop it. So now I know I'm working in different directions, right? So it's like when I start to actually sling this out, like I'm going to be rotating it as I go. All right. So now I've got it down to maybe like half an inch or so. I'm going to stop hitting the clay like this and then start slinging it out. So when I say sling the clay, like really what I'm doing is dropping the clay onto the table. But I'm dropping it, letting one side catch a little more and sort of dropping towards me like this, right? So I pick it up, I'm going to drop it. So and I'm just kind of rotating it around. Now, if I have a specific thing that I'm making, I need something to be longer on one side, I'll spend more time on this side getting it longer, right? But in this case, I really don't. I'm just stretching the whole thing out. So occasionally just rotate it around. I'm not slamming it down, just let gravity do the work. Just pick it up, drop it down. Don't worry about all these cracks, we're gonna get rid of them. So, basically what I want to get this down to is probably I like to work with the slabs a little bit smaller than 1/4 of an inch, depending on what I'm making, but 1/4 of an inch is a good gauge for you. So if you have a ruler and you want to know what 1/4 of an inch looks like, it's from that line to that line, right? That's 1/4 of an inch. So I'm pretty close. So it's pretty much, and this is really pretty even. So as long as I don't like violently slam down one side, like it's gonna stretch out pretty evenly, like just by dropping it down. Right, gravity's just gonna do all those things for you, right? So now, because I've finished slinging it out, I can make it, like once I clean it up, I can make it longer if I need to, because I can stretch it out more, because I'm gonna be adding a little more water to this. All right, so now what I want to do, because I've got my thickness, is I'm going to get a sheet of paper. So I don't want this to stick to my table, right? All right, so now I can move this around on using the newspaper, or I can slide it around, but now I'm gonna address the surface of the clay, right? I don't want all these cracks. These cracks aren't good, right? The clay's stretching, it's, you know, kind of coming apart. Some are gonna be worse than others, but there's a way to fix it, and it actually works out pretty nice, makes the clay really nice, because you're gonna use water, slip, and pressure, right? Three things that work really well with this. I'm gonna get my water bucket and a sponge. So the first, I like to do it this way because it just gives me a nice even coat of water. I don't want to dump water on it. I'm just getting it damp, right? And I'm using the sponge so it's kind of an even coat. See, all I'm doing is just kind of rehydrating that, right? Just gives it a little bit of a shine. So now I'm gonna go with my card here. So most of you have been using something like this, like you found something that would work. So, you know, this works great, even though it's not a real pottery tool, right? But I mean, you can use anything. You can use like a putty knife, right? I use wallpaper and sheetrock tools, right? Like this is a scraper, like I can do this, right? It covers a big area. But for this, I'm gonna show you with this card, because most of you have the card. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to start working sort of in different directions. I'm going to start working this way, or at this angle, and then come back and work the other angle, right? Different direction. And this kind of stretches the clay out too a little bit, like you get some of the higher places. So I'm working in different directions because these cracks go in different directions. And you can see it building up a lot of slip on this card. So what I can do is take this and push it into the low spots and the bigger holes. Just kind of stick it down in there. And it starts to smooth it out. You're not trying to put a ton of pressure on it, right? I'm putting enough pressure just to smooth out the surface, right? I'm not trying to gouge the clay. So you just touch the clay and feel what it feels like to stretch it across there, like with this card. Just moving quickly. Keep the card damp. You can see a few spaces that are going to be air bubbles there building up. I'm going to get rid of those in a minute. But you can already tell, like just in a short amount of time, like this surface is getting a lot better. And I haven't really added a lot more water to it since I put the sponge on there. Now it's more about the pressure from the card. I just keep the card damp so it slides on the surface. All right, still want to fill in this hole because when I flip it over, that will be an air, like that will cause a pocket. That's an air bubble, and I don't want that. All right, so I'm going to take a pin tool, needle, whatever you have, whatever sharp thing that you use to, like a paper clip would work. All right, just poke a little hole there. Fills back in with clay, no air bubble anymore, everything's good. So I just kind of look at this side and take care of a few little things before I flip it over. Now, as far as texture goes, what the surface looks like, I want this side to be pretty smooth. If I want it to have a texture, I would put that texture on there, right? I'll do a texture when I actually start making the pots, right before I do it. But right now, I'm just working on the slab. So it's not super wet anymore. Right, and it's definitely smoother and more compressed. So that surface is going to just be a lot nicer. Now I'm going to flip it over. What I do is just pick up my paper, kind of roll it back that way. You can see the back side is still just like it was on the front before. All right, so now I'm going to just drop it again. Right, stretch it a little more. It's not going to hurt anything. I like thin slabs. All right. Hydrate the side. And again, working different angles. I just think of it like an X pattern when I'm doing it, so it helps me get all of it moving around. So you see how I went all down this side going that way, and then before I was like on this side going this way. So they just kind of cross each other. Shouldn't be a lot of holes on this side, like big ones, because you've been pushing it down on the other side. There's usually a couple of little low spots. I just add a little clay to it. There will be a few air bubbles that you have to get out. I can still see some of the marks from where those things were stretched apart, right? And I'm just trying to move back over in a different direction so that they kind of disappear. So I'm adding just a little more pressure. Because I'm almost finished with the slab. So it is, it is kind of a long process to get the slab exactly the way you want it. But it's worth it because it makes the construction so much easier if you have a really good slab. And you can roll these out in advance. Now, you don't have to like do one, cut away, make your pot, or start making your pot and then go make another. You can make several, and I'll show you how to save them for a day or so. It's pretty easy, and that way you can like spend more time one day maybe rolling out slabs, and then the next day you spend more time doing the construction because all your slabs are made. All right. All kind of depends on how you like to work. For these demonstrations, today I'm doing this, and then I will cover this up, and tomorrow I'll show you some other things. I'll probably have a couple more slabs moving around too, just to show you as much as I can, and then we'll talk about the assignment. All right, so let's pop some air bubbles here, and then be done with this one. So now this clay is a lot tighter, right? Before it was all stretched out and loose, and clay is made up of particles, and those particles like to be compressed. They want to be tightened up. Right? They work much better when they're closer together. Right? So by pressing this and compressing it, moving it around in different directions, I've helped them out, right? So now they're happier. So I can do more things with this without it like snapping in two or having like really bad weak spots. The clay is much happier right now. All right, so if I were going to do texture, I could do it now, but I'm just gonna trim this up because there's things that I know I won't be able to use. I'm trying to get the most out of the slab that I can, and I'm gonna make it into like a rectangular look. So it's kind of longer this way, so I'll get more slab this way than I would the other way. So I'm gonna get a knife. I'm going to trim this off. So you can see that thickness is like right out a quarter of an inch. Like all this, it's really a nice piece of clay. Like you can do a lot with that, and it's not breaking or bending. All right. Save your scraps. You can make another slab. Sometimes like these pieces, depending on the size pot you're gonna make, sometimes something like this would make a good base. So I'll keep it and cut out the piece. And I mean, if you're the kind of person that wants to measure things and cut them, I'm not that kind of person. Like as far as like slabs go, I just kind of cut them. You can make a straight, you know how to make a straight line, right? If you measure off of something, you get 2 points, and then use a straight edge and get a straight line, right? This one has a little bit kind of messed up corner, but that's okay. I mean, so this is the scrap, right? And the scrap would make another slab, right? A smaller slab, but it would make one. So you can only do it, a couple times before the clay gets too dry to actually make the slab. But it's definitely helped the clay by me adding water to it, right? When I'm smoothing the slab out, even though it's a small amount of water. Okay, so that's saved. I'm gonna save that one for tomorrow to actually do things with. And I'm gonna bag this up. So now how do I keep that from drying out until I use it? So I take a trash bag, nice tall kitchen trash bag, right? I'm gonna lay this on top of the clay. Get the stick, and then I can pick up my paper, flip this over, peel the paper off. So now I have this sitting on the trash bag. So I can take this, fold that over, fold this over, fold that part over. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make a kind of a big roll. I'm not trying to tightly roll this. I'm just kind of turning it and letting it roll over on itself. And then roll it on out over the plastic. All right, so now I've covered this, like there's plastic all around this whole slab. It will be a little bit stiffer tomorrow when I use it, but in most cases that's okay, because you want the slab, like if you're making something and you really need it to hold the shape, the slab needs to be a little drier. So at this point, like you guys have done a couple of projects, and you know, so you kind of understand, like if the clay is really soft, it kind of falls apart, like it won't hold its shape as well. So you have to let it dry a little more in order to continue on with your idea. All right, so you could also take this if you have, you know, I know these things come in different sizes, but I mean, you could probably fit that in there maybe. If I had a bigger one, which I do, I could put it in one of these too, and then that's really gonna keep it, right? Keep it fresh for the next day. All right, so like kitchen things work out great for ceramics. You find all kinds of tools and gadgets that work. All right. Okay, so that's it for this demo, like how to make the slab.